Hi and welcome everyone. My name is Gigi Haycock and I am one of the programmers at SF Doc Fest 2023. So welcome. And with us today for Water for Birds, we have two directors that have founded a production company called Good Grief Productions. And it's Cameron Trafford and Henry Gosper. And I just want to welcome you both and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Great. Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack with this film, I feel like. But I kind of wanted to talk first about, I noticed in your bios, it says something about Documentary Australia Foundation Storyworks. Is that kind of how this came about and you learned about Gurria Center or?
No, not necessarily. I think Documentary Foundation Australia came into the picture, I think sort of midway through production.
Okay.
Yeah, so Henry and I first started Good Grief in 2016. And I think a lot of the reasons why we started our production company was the love for documentary storytelling. And I guess that started with us just telling short stories on basically anything we can find, interesting people. And I think that passion grew alongside our commercial business of just, sort of finding other clients and sort of getting our head around the commercial landscape. But the documentary pieces really were the thing that we were most passionate about. And we really kept pushing that over the first couple of years. And that sort of just led to, I guess, the desire to embark on a journey and find a bigger story. And so, Henry and I have been fortunate enough to grow up with two mothers who are quite involved in the social change space. And, we're very inspired by both of them. And it was my mum who was working over in India with a different organization. And that organization was basically rehabilitating and reintroducing women that had been previously trafficked and reintegrating them back into the workforce and finding work for them. And I think it was just, my mum's work over there that showed us what was really happening over there and the problem and the people involved and the people on the ground over there. So it was as simple as just, us being interested and sort of embarking on an adventure. We booked tickets, we flew over there. We met with Mum's organization that she was working with. And I think a big thing with making a film is everything needs to feel right to tell a story. There's a lot of things that have to come together for the story to actually evolve. And for whatever reason, it wasn't quite right with the organization where my mum was. So we're still over in India. We did a bit of research and we found Gurria online. It was as simple as that. And we sent an email to Ajit Singh, who was the founder. And we said, look, we really love what you're doing, because we can talk about it a bit later, but we loved their approach to the issue. And we just sent an email and flew over there and had a tea with him and spent 1 or 2 weeks just hanging out, chatting. And he's a very, very interesting man. He's very philosophical and he's got quite a presence. And it was in that time where we sat with him and we heard about, their approach to multi-generational prostitution and human trafficking and all the sexual exploitation that's happening over in North India. And they have a very particular approach that we were really interested in, and we could see a film from that. So after meeting him for that first time, we came back to Melbourne and regrouped and went back to the drawing board and basically pitched an idea to him. And we said, look, this is how we see it. And he was on board and he gave us, basically full access and full cooperation. And he just said, let's do it. And we had no idea what we were embarking on. We didn't know how long it was going to be, how long it was going to take. And here we are 5 years later. So I guess, that was how we got there.
He's amazing. How was it that, how did the kids react to having cameras around them? Was it Was that a kind of
It
a
was-
learning process for them and such? Because I mean, you all are just, there's no real interaction, you just capture everything and it's from the teachers and the kids' point of view. There's not a lot of like what's on the outside of the walls, even though we do see that. It's
Absolutely.
really that refuge that these children have, I think.
Yeah, that was that was, as Cam said, what we kind of formulated as an idea when we came back to Melbourne after the first trip to India. And we're like, there's there's two amazing sides to this story and this organization, but the one side we really want to focus on is the kids, and like trying to attack this at the level of like education, and building these kids up with the idea that they have more to give than just staying in this cycle. And so that was the biggest thing for us. We're like, how do we get in there? Obviously, when we first enter the center, the kids are going to be very aware of us, and they were. So that's why we kind of had this idea with Ajit, the NGO, to come in for the first 2 weeks just as like teachers, like not even have any cameras. So we're there just like interacting with the kids, them getting used to us, da, 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 da. Then after like those 2 weeks, we kind of brought in GoPros and just had like little cameras and kind of taught them about angles and lighting, and we'd get them to make their own little things. And then we'd bring in like a bigger like Sony camera and get them to make their own films, and we'd go back home and edit them and then come back and show them the next day. And that was like a 4-week process of like not even filming anything. And then like after that, we would bring in our big cameras, and the first day when we walked in and they kind of looked at us and they're like, oh, hi, and then looked away, that's when we started filming. So we kind of built this this like trust up, I guess, and got used to everyone being used to us and us in the environment. And I think that was like the biggest like the catalyst for the style of the film. It was so important, and it's really kind of created this fundamental rule for us now, over the last few years of our commercial work, is really putting attention into pre-production, and making sure that you connect with the subject. If you're doing a documentary on them, like becoming friends with them before you even start filming, like I think it was imperative, and it was such a brilliant idea from Ajit to bring that forward to us, and it worked amazingly.
Yeah, and just off the back of that, I know you mentioned, I guess the film stays inside the walls of the center, rather than sort of exploring what's outside of the walls. And obviously that was, quite a particular approach that we chose to take. And just moving back to when we first met Ajit and were introduced to Guria, that was what stuck out to us the most. So there's obviously the two sides of the business for them, which is one side is tackling the issue head on, which is, raiding brothels, prosecuting traffickers, rehabilitating the women, counseling legal battles, all that sort of stuff. But then the other side is obviously the center, which they go into the red light area and they develop this center and this, Ajit calls it an oasis in the desert, where they focus on art therapy to essentially make these kids fall in love with existence and connect with the world, so that when they grow up, it shifts the psyche of the whole area, and they can all make decisions for themselves and become respectful human beings. And it's such a beautiful system that they've built through peer learning. Like all of the teachers are past students, and there's this cycle of just looking after one another and bringing everyone on board with this vision of a harmonious society. And it was all of these words that when we first met Ajit, he was saying all these things to us, and we just connected with that immensely. So that was purely why we were like, this is where the story lies. Because one thing Henry and I talk about all the time is, we've seen the docos that focus on, the brothel raids and the crazy things that go on. And as a Western audience, sometimes those images and those statistics can be quite shocking and jarring, because it almost seems unfathomable how we can make a difference, or it just seems so far away. Whereas this school, this center, is familiar. Everyone knows what it's like being in a small school with young children exploring art. So we found that was a really nice way to connect a Western audience, but then also subtly inject a little bit about what's happening outside. So yeah, that was a big part of the process for us.
Yeah, and I think as well, just quickly, in terms of like staying within the center, we kind of had this like shocking side, which was the numbers and the stats and like the brothel raids and everything, and then we had this center, and because we kind of chose to focus on the center, there were elements where we could have brought in some shocking like factors, I guess, and there was like talks of people in the NGO were like, oh, do you want us to give the kids cameras to like take home into their homes and stuff? I was just like, no, like that's not what we're focusing on. We've chosen to focus on this like positive environment, and we don't want the kids to like have to facilitate us, showing this like shocking side. Like we don't want to reinforce that at all. And I think that was the biggest thing for us, is like we're coming into an environment where we don't actually know like at all, like anything at all really about the issue, like it's such a complex issue. And I think us recognizing that made us kind of remove ourselves as much as possible from the film. So that's why we chose to have it observational. It's like nothing, like that's why we wanted to wait 4 weeks. Like we wanted to be non-existent in the film and just let the audience be a part of the center, not be like on our shoulder walking around. It's like you're there with them.
Yeah.
And,
well,
and just off, oh, sorry, I
ahead.
was just going to say, yeah, just off the back of that, what Henry was saying about the approach, it was, yeah, really, I mean, we've never made a film like that before in a foreign language. The process was crazy. We shot over 3 separate trips. And each trip when we were filming, obviously, we don't understand Hindi. We had a translator there with us who could like identify things that were happening and sort of let us know where to focus on. And, sometimes Henry and I, because we shot with 2 cameras, we'd be sort of dancing around each other, and we almost formed this communication through our eyes, and we'd sort of see a conversation happening and we'd be like, okay, this is something. And we'd both kind of look at each other and find a way to shoot it without being too sort of close to them. And it was quite a dance. But there were times where we were shooting a conversation for like half an hour and we had no idea what was happening. We just got really good at reading body language. And then our translator would come up to us at the end and say, oh yeah, they spoke about this, and this. But then we still really didn't know the essence of what was said. So it wasn't until the end of each trip where we uploaded all of our rushes and sent them off to a translator who sent back a translation file. And it wasn't until we were back in the studio in Melbourne where we received the file and we'd just drop it into our project, and we'd see like 10 hours of footage translated for the first time. And that was when we started piecing together, oh, wow, like she said this, like, oh, wow, like they're related.
Yeah.
So it was a really slow process of trying to piece together the narrative, which obviously made it very tricky. But yeah, it was a really fun process.
It was.
Is that how you then came to, through that footage that you got in the translation, came to the story, basically the lives of Shishu and Krishna? And you use that, I think, it feels like, to kind of as an example of what these kids are going through.
Absolutely, and that's bang on. I think we wanted to have a representation of someone who was maybe going against the grain of the center, showing like what's luring these kids in. And we were kind of struggling with it because we were like asking teachers, is there a kid in here who's like a bit more, I don't know, like who you're a bit more worried about, I guess, than others, and they were kind of pointing to a few kids, and then when we'd film them, they'd be like, the most well-behaved kid ever, and we'd be like, what the hell, like, what are we doing? Like, we're trying to make this kid, whatever. And we're just like, no, like, that's not what it is. Like, it's not one kid. It's not any kid. It's just like, things just happen, kids fall into it at certain times. And it was literally like on our last trip where we were packing down our cameras, and we just heard this mother like run in and just like start like yelling at this teacher. And we're like, what's going on? And our translator was just like, get your camera now. And we got our cameras and like came outside and we saw that scene where the mother brings in Shishu when she's found him working for the pimp. And it was just like this incredible moment where we just like, she was so focused on the issue that she didn't even look at us. Like she'd never seen us before. These two guys with cameras didn't even look at us. And like that whole scene was like, whoa, we've just got given the thing that we were looking for, you know? And we didn't have to look for the kid because it's not any kid. It just happens to any kid at any time. And it happened to be Shishu at that time with the mother. And it was amazing because we had so much of this stuff with Krishna and Anu connecting. And then when we saw it, we're like, oh my God, they're brother and sister. So then when the mum came in, she was also concerned about Krishna. It became this like incredible thing where it just fell into place. I'm like, of course, like that's the narrative. And it was amazing because obviously the narrative really focuses on Anu, the teacher, and kind of her, you know, facing her like trials and tribulations, as well as, you know, her family and her self-worth and like where she's at and what she's doing. And it was incredible to have that connection with her and Krishna at the end. And it was, yeah, it really just kind of made the whole film make sense for us.
Yeah, it was a really intimate and conversation where she, you know, she starts telling her so much about what her life was like when she was younger and when she came to the center and how long she stayed there. And so obviously, you know, connecting with Krishna about, hey, I came from here too, you know, in a way, because we go back and we see her home and her mother, and was it her mother or grandmother? I can't remember, but
her
mother. Have you taken your medication?
No. It was incredible. And I think like what that is a good representation of is, you know, Guriya, they strive for, you know, the opportunity to bring these kids up so they can leave the cycle and go get jobs elsewhere. But some of them naturally fall back into the cycle just because it's lucrative and that's what their parents want. And you see that as an example, you know, the mom has been like, the dad wants us to send her away to, you know, but some of them choose to stay in the center. And that's what Anu's done. And I think that was the biggest thing for us because now Anu basically runs the center and it's this like peer-to-peer thing now. And Ajit from the NGO has now kind of stepped away from the center and he basically runs like the head office, which is 20 minutes, you know, away. But the center is like, he just has given them complete agency and it's amazing. It's amazing.
And there's three more of these centers that are in northern India.
So that's actually that's actually another wonderful thing that I guess proves that what they've set up actually works. Varanasi is actually it's replicable, and Varanasi is actually the first child prostitution free red light area in the country, which is a massive achievement. So there's three more centers. That was obviously the first center, and there's three others out there that are being built in North India, and hopefully many more off the back of this.
And talking about how the kids planting the trees was such a metaphor for what they're doing. Like they were saying that this isn't going to happen for 100 years, probably 50 to 100 years of these trees, and you're planting them for the next people here and so it's kind of giving them, hey, there's a future that's beyond what you may be in right now.
Absolutely.
And they give them, you know, just through the meditation and the yoga and asking them just the questions that they ask them so often about that all of a sudden the kids are having to take responsibility that, oh yeah, I left my shoes at the wrong place. But I mean, just these simple things, but that you learn, you know, backpacks go over here, right? That kind of thing, so it gives them some structure, it felt like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, you go, Hen.
No, you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and that's one of the core reasons why we were so drawn to this story, was exactly that. I think the the program that they've developed and what they teach the kids is just amazing. And as I said before, it's that idea of connecting with existence and connecting with the world just in a really simple and beautiful way that makes you love life, and then ultimately you'll love the person next to you. Yeah, that tree, you know, it's just like around that sort of generational change of shifting the psyche of the area. And if you get enough people on board, it's really going to change the fabric of the society. So it was just a really, really beautiful message that, we were instantly blown away by. And that was the whole idea of just subtly injecting and coming back to this lesson. Because it's all about, you know, trying to build these kids up so that they can be community-minded leaders in their own right, and influence the next generation when they're bringing them up. And I think, Water for Birds is another example of that. You know, there are lots of little bird baths around the school, and, you know, it's the kids' responsibility to make sure there's enough water for the local birds to come and drink. You know, something as simple as that. It's just a really beautiful idea, and they all have their own little pot plant with their name on it, and it's their responsibility to keep their plant alive. So there's just lots of little things like that, which all just point back to that same idea.
Yeah, and I think as well, you know, talking about these kind of like simple messages, it's a film where, you know, a lot of the dialogue is directed towards children. So there are these like kind of simple, you know, sometimes repetitive messages, but they hold so much weight. And I think there are such beautiful metaphors for even us, like especially us, to take on board. And I think that's what's so nice about the film, is that, you know, because it's observational, you become a child almost in the center. So like these messages, as much as they are for the children, they're for the audience. And when you meditate, like when they meditate at the start and it goes to like black for a bit, it's like you're in the meditation with them. Like we're really trying to bring you into that space, being like, you're not in this theater watching the film, you are now in the center. Like this is an opportunity to learn some really important, valuable lessons. And I think that's what we want to do with the film as well, is maybe like, you know, try to get into some humanitarian classes and see the value of this kind of alternative education model over there, and how we can kind of adopt some of that potentially into our Western education style, pedagogical teaching approaches, or just our everyday life.
Yeah, I felt that all of a sudden I was breathing with the kids, you know?
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it was like,
Did you shout?
shake it off, shake the day off, whatever. I think you succeeded in that. It's very much. And I also, I would be remiss if I didn't point out how beautifully shot the film is, and also just the sound accompanying those shots. And just the kids, obviously, that was them mainly, but then when you get out and you have that gorgeous, you know, soundtrack basically of the surrounding area.
We got very lucky and by chance met with this incredible musician Vijay, who was, you know, the son of, he was like the godfather of classical music in India, and Varanasi is the home of classical music in India. And we originally, when we were first cutting our film, we had like a local Indian group make some music in Varanasi, and we kind of put that on the film, and there was a disconnect for us, because we were like, it just seems like we've kind of just put like Indian music over the top of this because it's in India, and it didn't feel right because that wasn't the style of the film. And then through meeting Vijay, we're like, okay, this is an opportunity now to show him the film, see if he connects with it, let him spend a week with it. If he likes it, then maybe he can go away and write some music. And that's what he did. And he came back to us with just being like, I feel this about this character and this. And we're just like, yes, amazing. He went away and wrote some music, and then, excuse me, went into a local studio, Mahadev Studios in Varanasi, and brought him in for 3 days. And he had this brilliant idea where it was just like, he's like, you know, just strip it back to only sitar. Like it should just be only sitar, nothing else. And we ended up getting a bit of tabla and tampura in there as well. But, you know, it's basically not even used. I think the tabla is used at like the start for the intro, then it sucks away. You don't get it again. And there's a sense of like unease or tension because you don't get it again. And there's almost like a sense of unease and tension because we hold cutaways for so long. But like that's the whole point. You're meant to like kind of go through that process of being like, all right, like we're meant to leave. Oh, we're still here. Okay, why are we still here? And then like
Mhm.
boom, you know, like so I think it's a very slow film. It's a very meditative film. Um, I think it's an art film just as much as a documentary.
And
I would
just to add in there, when we recorded with Vijay in the studio, I think we recorded it over 2 sessions, I believe. But it was so amazing because like he had his particular process in the way he wanted to record it. And that was essentially, we just sit back and he goes, let me just play. I'm going to play all my feelings. I've watched all the scenes. I know the characters. They're all in my head. Let me just
We just
play.
lay down on the ground, like
And
just
like,
eyes
yeah.
closed, hearing the sound. It was just like Andy, the guy who was like doing all that sound, Andy Richards. He like put up all these incredible like contact microphones and stereo mics and mono, just and like it just had it swirling around us, and it was like
And he
finally.
played for, I think,
Yeah.
3 hours nonstop, where like
Wow.
even like he didn't even finish a song. Like he kept plucking to like
Yeah.
bridge all the different songs together. So we had Emily Swanson, our music editor, she had to like go through and find ways to bring music in and take it out. But there was actually no start or finish. Kind
So
of
she
like the
did a
film as
remarkable
well. It's
job.
like there's
Yeah, she
all these
did.
reoccurring metaphors that keep coming back because there really is no start and end. We just jumped in at a period of time and we jumped out. You know, that's the other thing is like we don't think that we've solved anything by making this film. We just wanted to come in at a particular time and sort of represent or show what's happening at this moment in time. So yeah.
Have you been in contact with that specific center since you finished the film?
Yeah. We've been
Yeah.
back. We've brought our, girlfriends there, brought like moms there, speak to them regularly. I'm going back there as well in this year. I think it's a place that we'll now be forever connected to and constantly visit throughout the rest of our lives.
And not even just the center as well. I mean,
Varanasi.
we've got family in Varanasi.
Crazy.
I mean, we stayed at the same place. I think
Almost
like
30
let's
weeks.
see, for like 20 weeks. And
Yeah.
the guy who owned it, Yogesh, he was so lovely. It was called the Shiva Inn. And he gave us the top floor. And by the end of the filming, like that was essentially our bedroom. It was our home base. And, there was a little local community there. Like we had one particular laundry lady. We had one particular person that we got our chais from.
Yeah.
And so,
They're all on
yeah,
special thanks.
Yeah, it's just a huge, huge family that we formed over the time.
Yeah, it was amazing. And like we even like, people usually go there for like 3 or 4 days kind of thing. So like, after the second week, they're like, you guys still here? After the third or fourth week, it's like, what the hell? 5th week, they're just
Can't
like,
get rid of us.
Cam, what up? And we're just like, yo, hello, like to everyone. And remember one time it was like on the second trip towards the back end, we were filming by the Ganga, by the river, and we left a lens by the river.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like gone, like gone. Because we were there for so long, someone knew that we had been filming, so they like found someone to find us, and like it got brought back to us. Like someone brought us back the lens, and we're just like, the community here is like nothing else. It was so important, and they helped us so much. Facilitating like transport to here and here, and a lot of the time when we're going to the red light area, we had to shift tuk-tuks, like we had to go into different like stores and stuff to kind of hide the fact that we were going in, and they were just like, they were so helpful.
Oh, well, it's amazing and it comes through so well. And I don't know, is there anything else you want to tell about the film that I may not have asked?
I mean, I think like I've absolutely loved your questions, and I've absolutely loved your take on the film, and it's incredible to hear you connect with it. Honestly, this is like the first time we've really, heard someone that, that's not from like a direct friendship group who would probably just like say it's good if it wasn't good to us. yeah, it's incredible. I
And
really enjoy your questions.
and I think just adding on that, I mean, yeah, I mean, it was a bloody hard film to make.
Yeah.
I think I said to you at the start of this, it's been 5 years since we first met Ajit and had the idea. And, you know, I'd be lying if if I didn't say that there weren't times where we thought we were never going to finish the film. And, you know, there were times where we hated it. There were times where we thought it sucked. There were times where we thought it was the best thing in the world. And it's just been this up and down roller coaster trying to finish this film.
Yeah.
You know, it's our first feature and it's in a different language, and just all the stuff that happened. It was a big sort of, it took a lot of energy out of us. But we're
It
just
shows
so
it shows you can
happy.
do it, you know. It shows that you can do it. And like
Yeah.
just like a guerrilla style, like is sometimes the most effective style.
Mhm.
Mm.
And yeah, and I think I don't know. It's been a we actually entered the film. We saw in Film Freeway. We entered the film 4 years ago into Sundance Film Festival at a 2.5. It was a 2.5 hour film, uncolor graded, no sound mix, like no checking of subtitles. We like just like we're so keen, like boom, 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 like doesn't even matter. Like the story is amazing. We'll send it in. Like obviously got straight away, and basically it was like, all right, now we need to go back to the drawing board and get this like pro.
Tight.
And
Yeah.
we went crazy a little bit, you know, like I think you kind of get to 95% and you're like, all right, we're going to go that next 5% to try and get it like perfect. And that 5% kind of takes the same amount as that 95%, you
Yeah.
know, you only
Yeah,
get
you don't know
95%.
when you're done.
And then you
And
realize
I
when you get
mean,
to the end, there's no 100%, and you're always at 95%. You know, that's as far as you can go. So, I mean, we could have had it out last year, and that was a thing for us. You know, it's like, you know, are we like, is there an urgency to get this film out? You know, is it a pressing topic? Is it a thing that's always going to be there? Are we trying to, you know, give too much attention and yeah, prioritize like aesthetic of the film and the look? But we just knew that it was really important for the audience to connect with it, you know,
Mm.
visually,
Yeah.
like the sound, and like we had to make it look good. So that's just what we've been doing for the last 4 years, is like we've known what the story is, we just try to make it look good. So
and just on that as well, I mean, the film could very well be 2 hours. I mean, we loved it at 2 hours. We had so much more, like so many more scenes that like we're still a little bit sad that didn't make it into the final cut.
Mhm.
But you know, we knew the importance of tightening it.
yeah,
Yes.
Because I think the hardest thing for us was we were so attached to our experience over there,
Mhm.
and we knew all the intricacies quite well because we were there and we lived it. And we almost put that expectation on a first-time viewer to understand and just connect all the dots.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, we got a lot of feedback that people weren't connecting as many dots as we were.
Right.
So we made that decision to, yeah, from 2 hours, it's now at 52. But it feels a lot more, yeah, digestible and tighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I you covered it. I mean, it was beautiful. And I mean, I would still love to see that other footage in
well, that's what
something,
we
but
will.
maybe.
We will
But
be releasing. I think, like, you know, it's so cool these days with Instagram and stuff that your film can have a life beyond just like, you know, the film and the screening. So
Mhm.
you know, we've got all these extra scenes that haven't made it in, that give such a beautiful insight into the operations of Guria, and a bit more insight into the center. So I think, you know, that will definitely be released into the world. And yeah, we can't wait. We can't wait to share everything. Yeah,
well, I can't wait to see it, and we should keep in touch. So
absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
want to
Thanks so
thank you
much for your
both
time.
so much. It was like I said, I loved it. So and everybody else will too. And congratulations on a gorgeous
Thank you
film
so
and
much.
very
Well,
meaningful.
we really appreciate you guys and taking the film on board. It's yeah, super amazing. We're super happy, and that was it. An awesome interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Oh
so
yeah.
much.
Thanks, you guys. Have a good day.
You too.
You
Thanks
too.
everyone.